and welcome. This is GK lecture series and the topic for today is Indian Constitution, how it was made and what are some of its most salient features. So let us begin. 26 January 1950 was the day when our constitution was enforced. This was a red letter day in the history of India. This day announced the arrival of India on the world scene as the new democratic republic. However, constitution making wasn't a one-day exercise. British ruled India for approximately 2 centuries, to be more precise for 190 years. That is from the Battle of Plassey in 1757 to 1947 when we eventually became free. So this entire phase of 190 years can be divided into 2 parts. The first century of British rule in India, that is from 1757 till the revolt of 1857, is a phase known as company rule. For the simple fact, during these 100 years, India was ruled by a company named East India Company. After the revolt of 1857, East India Company was abolished and consequently the rule of East India Company was converted into the rule of British Parliament. This is a phenomena called company rule getting transferred into crown rule. During company rule, we were regulated by laws which are known as Regulating Act, and during crown rule we were regulated by 2 sets of laws, one which are known as Government of India Act and another which are known as Indian Councils Act. Both Government of India Act as well as Indian Council Acts were passed thrice. So let us note down their years. Indian Council Acts were passed in 1861, 1892 and 1909, and Government of India Acts were passed in the years 1858, 1919 and 1935. Why am I telling you this is because these Council Acts and Government of India Acts and some of their provisions, they also found a place in the Constitution of Independent India also. And for that matter, Government of India Act 1935 was the single largest source of inspiration for Constitution of Independent India. One of the constant Indian aspiration during Indian freedom struggle was getting this ability to make our own rules. This was a persistent Indian demand to which British initially were very unwilling. In fact, when Simon Commission was formed to create new Constitution of India, there was no Indian member found a place in that commission. That became the reason that the commission, even before it can set foot in India, had to face lot of Indian protest. So this was a constant battle between Indian leaders and British government as to who would make rules for India. This Indian demand for being able to make our own rules were finally conceded by British government in 1940 as a part of August offer. 1940, all of you know, was the year when Second World War was going on, and in order to get Indians on their side, British government accepted their demand. British government kept their promise this time, and in 1946 a cabinet mission was sent to India. So this was the historical background of our demand for getting home rule. We started demanding a greater participation in administration right from revolt of 1857. Then this demand became very strong during First World War, became very vehement and openly rebellious during Simon Commission protest march, and this demand was finally conceded by British government during Second World War. Cabinet mission was sent in 1946, and one of the important proposal of this mission was to create a Constituent Assembly comprised entirely of Indians to write the new Constitution of India. Mind you, in this sense, Constituent Assembly that was elected in 1946 was quite different from Simon Commission, because as you remember, Simon Commission has no Indian as its member, whereas in this assembly all the members were Indians. This assembly was given the task to write the Constitution of New India, and the assembly set out on its task on 9th December 1946, which was the day of first meeting of Constituent Assembly. In its very first meeting, Constituent Assembly elected Dr. Sachidanand Sinha, the oldest member of that assembly, as the temporary head. 2 days later, on 11 December 1946, Constituent Assembly elected its permanent president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Dr. Rajendra Prasad later on became the first president of India also. On 13th December 1946, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru presented his famous objective resolution in Constituent Assembly. This resolution spelled out the philosophy of Indian Constitution. This resolution highlighted the objectives or the aims that Constitution of Independent India would strive to achieve. The language of this resolution was greatly inspired by the ideals of French Revolution, the ideals like liberty, equality and fraternity, and in fact you would see that these very same words later found a space in the preamble of Indian Constitution. The task of writing India's Constitution was concluded on 26 November 1949. That is exactly after 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. However, this newly framed constitution was not immediately implemented. In fact, 26 January was chosen as the date from which constitution would become applicable throughout the country. This date, 26 January, was chosen because this date was a very important date in India's history. It has a very important place because on the very same date, way back in 1929, on the bank of river Ravi in Lahore, a historic resolution for Purna Swaraj was passed. So in order to make 26 January remarkable for the future generations of India, this date was chosen as India's Republic Day. So the last meeting of Constituent Assembly was scheduled on 24th January. All the members of Constituent Assembly came, they gave their approval, they signed the document and they decided that from 26th January this document would become applicable throughout the India. And this is the story how India became a republic from 26 January 1950. Now you must understand the difference. We became an independent country on 15th August 1947, but it took us another 2.5 years to become a republic, because we became a republic on 26 January 1950. Both these dates are important for India. So we celebrate one as India's Independence Day, that is 15th August, and another as India's Republic Day, that is 26th January. So for your benefit, let me reiterate the factual information about India's constitution making process once again. Let us first of all look at the timelines. So I told you first meeting of Constituent Assembly was held on 9th December 1946. President was elected on 11th December 1946. Objective resolution by Pandit Nehru was passed on 13th December 1946. The constitution making process was concluded on 26th November 1946. Last meeting of the assembly was scheduled on 24th January 1950 and constitution came into force from 26th January 1950. So this was timeline. Apart from the dates, let us now look at important people who were associated with this process of constitution making. Most remarkable name is Baba Sahab Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. He was the chairman of Constitution Drafting Committee, and in that regard he is known as Father of Indian Constitution or the Chief Architect of Indian Constitution. There were a lot of other committees also. For example, Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minority Rights and Tribal Affairs was headed by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. States Committee was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. Finance and Staff Committee was headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and so on. Let us now look at some of the salient features of that document. Constituent Assembly has written down one of the lengthiest constitution in the world. Our constitution has approximately 395 articles divided in 22 different parts, and in the end of this document there are 12 schedules. Our constitution is unique in the sense that this is a very judicious blend of best features of lot of different constitutions of the world. Here is a list of sources of inspiration for Indian constitution. You can visualize here that how we have chosen best practices from different constitution, gave them an Indianized version, Indianized flavor, and added that into India's constitution. Constitution gives every citizen in our country certain fundamental rights. Beside that, it also fixes certain responsibilities both on government in the form of directive principles of state policies as well as on the citizens in the form of fundamental duties. We shall talk at length about all these important features of constitution in one of our next videos. The process, which began on 9th December 1946 and which finally culminated on 26th January 1950, that is after approximately 3 years. And the document or the constitution which was born because of this was a great labor of love, extreme compassion, and highest level of intellectual deliberation and capabilities. This constitution, with all its flaws and shortcomings, has served us well for past 70 years and is expected to serve us in the future also. Thank you.